Hey, sis. I'll let some people come in. Thank you. I'll wait a couple minutes, let people come in. Figure out where we're going to start today. I think we're just going to start at Bill's story. I don't know where we should start. Go get your dinner, Mike. I will get mine when I'm done. Hey, Tony, where should I start in the big book? Do I have to read the beginning of it or just go to Bill's story? Asking for an opinion. I think I just want to start at Bill's story. All right, I'm going to start at Bill's story then. It's on page 1, chapter 1. I didn't know where I was going to start, so I didn't put it in the description. So if you're new here, usually I do put it in the description, and I'm reading out of the 4th edition, so you're not going to have it on the same page, but it's Bill's story, so just find that in the big book. That is this book. And to get the steps and traditions out of this book, which is the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. Awesome things to read that help you get through going through your sobriety and everything. And that's my son Willard, my oldest. I can't say he's the smartest, but anyways, let's go ahead and get this meeting going. I figured that's what you would say. All right. I'm Sandra, and I'm an alcoholic. Please do not be judging each other in the chat. Don't bully each other. Do not come and go to their channels and bully them and be mean about being alcoholics, because not everybody that comes here is the alcoholic. And being that way with an alcoholic is not good, and it doesn't help them at all. So please be mindful of everybody in here that is battling their addiction of alcohol or whatever it is that they're battling, because not everybody knows that there is help. That don't judge them for it because they are judging themselves already. I know I did. So just be mindful of that. Anyways, people come here to help their family members, their friends, and all of the likings. And Tony says, "Hello, kids."
Tony says hi.
They're eating. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like I said, I get the steps and traditions out of the little book, and I don't read the traditions unless if I'm doing the traditions. Just so you know. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. It's hot in here. Okay, here we go. Bill's story. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned, and we were flattered when the first citizen took us to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime, with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last, and in the midst of the excitement, I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of my people concerning drink. In time, we sailed for over there. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is ne'er forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. Ominous warning, which I failed to heed. 22 and a veteran of foreign war, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation. My talent for leadership, I imagined, would place me at the head of vast enterprises which I would manage with the utmost assurance. I took a night law course and obtained employment as investigator for a surety company. The drive for success was on. I'd proved to the world I was important. My work took me about Wall Street, and little by little I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholic, that I was. I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it still it disturbed my wife. We had long talks still when I would still her forebodings by telling her that men of genius conceive their best project when drunk, that the most majestic construction of philosophic thought were so derived. By the time I had completed the course, I knew the law was not for me. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street had me in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. It went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would some day have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. I had developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. We gave up our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle, the sidecar stuffed with tent, blankets, a change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of financial reference service. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. Perhaps they were right. I had some success at speculation, so we had a little money, but we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. That was the last honest manual labor on my part. for many a day. We covered the whole eastern United States in a year. At the end of it, my report to Wall Street procured me a position there and the use of a large expense account. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. For the last few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Drink was taking an important and exuberant. Will you turn that fan this way, please?
Give me a second.
I'm sweating to death over here. Exhilarating part in my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places downtown or uptown. I'm used to saying downtown. Everyone spent in thousands and charted in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair-weather friends. My drinking assumed me serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrance of my friend terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. In 1929, I contracted Gulf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud while I started out to overtake Walter Hagen. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I began to be jittery in the morning. Gulf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to carom around the exclusive course which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one, seized upon too well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his soul with assumed skepticism. Tongue-tied. Abrupt in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of the tape which bore the inscription XYZ 32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were my friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the tower of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day, and as I drank, the old pirate's determination to win came back. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No street Helena for me, but drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time, we stayed broke. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years, or hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage place. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, and often 3, got to be routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bills at the bars. And delicateness, this went on endlessly, and I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin, followed by several dozen bottles of beer, would be required. If I were to eat any breakfast, nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law passed. My wife and father-in-law became ill. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at the low point in 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a progress. I can't pronounce these words, so if you understand what it is, great. Bender, and the chance vanished. I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through fever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. There had been no fight. Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know. I hadn't even come to mind, or it hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some passed, and confidence began to be replaced by cockiness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into a cafe to telephone. In no time, I was beating on the bar asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then, and I did. Let's see how long this one is. This one's really long. Let's build story. This one's long. How long have I been live? Keep going. The remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck. For it was scarcely daylight. An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My withering nerves were still at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I off myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So, 2 bottles and oblivion. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms. For mine endured this agony 2 more years. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, causing myself for a weakling, or cursing myself for a weakling. There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escape. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish I feared I would burst through my window sash, ends all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor lest I suddenly leap. A doctor came with a heavy sedative. Next day found me drinking both gin and sedative. This combination soon labeled me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity, so did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. My brother in law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of his mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though or certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill, bodily and mentally. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months the goose hung high. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not, for the frightful day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish. The certain the curtain, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremors, or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities of the capacity to surmount obstacles, was concerned at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless procession of sots who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? But what was over now? But that was over now. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in the bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Fear sobered me for a bit. Then came the insidious insanity of that first drink. And on Armistice Day, 1934, I was off again. Okay, sis. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere or would stumble along to a miserable end. How dark it is before the dawn. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Just a minute. A little bit. Trying to find my spot. Okay, found it. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through the night, and the next day my wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wondered how he had escaped. Of course, he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing an oasis drinkers are like that. The door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had got into the fellow. He wasn't himself. Come, what all this about? I queried. He looked straight at me, simply but smilingly. He said, I've got religion. I was aghast. So that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had that starry eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire, all right. But bless his heart, let him rant because my gin would last longer than his preaching. It didn't. But he did no ranting. In a matter of fact way, he he told how two men had appeared in court, persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly, I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. He talked for hours. Childhood memories rose before me. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sunday, way over there on the hillside. There was that proffered temperance pledge I never signed. My grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folks and their doings, his insistence that the sphere really had their music, but his denial of the preacher's right to tell him how he must listen, his fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died. These recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard. That wartime day in old Winchester Cathedral came back again. I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a sphere of aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the blah blah, astronomers, even the evolutionists suggested vast laws and force at work, despite contrary indications. I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much of precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in the spirit of the universe, who knew neither time nor limitations, but that was as far as I had gone. Now that fan's not doing any good. You shut the door on me. Just a minute. I'm back. With ministers in the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. To Christ I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely, followed by those who claimed him, his moral teachings most excellent for myself. I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest is disregarded. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. Because I still got like 5 pages to go. Yeah, I got 5 pages to go, so I'm going to leave it here. It's warm in here. Going through changes. Anyways, I better leave that there. I forget. I didn't get that far into my alcoholism. I mean, I was in there, like really good in there, and nothing mattered, and as I've said, my oldest brought me a paper from school that, just a second, Garfield, you might see Garfield. Yes, I'm doing a meeting in my jammies. But I don't miss drinking in no way. I'm glad I'm sober. I want to stay sober. But like I had already gotten sober, like Bill, before even thinking about a meeting. But I hurt myself, and I figured, all right, I'm just gonna go sober, and be fine with it. That's not what happened. I got sober, and I jinxed myself, which is what a lot of us alcoholics do, is we plan it before we get the aha. We're like, okay, for me, when I first, I don't know, I think I was drinking for like really drinking on a daily, every day, all day, was like for 2 years. And I quit because I got hurt in my own home, and I was by myself. I had, everybody left me. And I had called my sister and had her come over. I've told the story before. I blamed her for punching me and cutting my eye open. Now, I went sober for a year, thinking a year later that, I can just have a casual drink. That's where it messes up. And I think that's a big reason that I've been able to stay sober for 10 years, almost 11. Is because I already did all that. I didn't care. And then I didn't have a program that worked for me or know that I needed to do a program. So I was doing it solely on my own and going through my withdrawals on my own. But it's I'm baptized and I'm not religious. I got baptized because that's what my grandmother wanted. I know it's a stupid reason, but that's why. Um, I got my kids baptized and I shouldn't have. I should have let them pick on their own like my mom did for us. But I didn't. I had them baptized because my grandmother, she's like, you guys need to get baptized. And so we all did. And but that was a time in my life where I got baptized with my oldest son. Um, so, but they don't go to church either. And one doesn't believe in certain things and the other believes in things. And it's just, whatever. You have your choice. But I do know people that don't claim that they think that there's something else in the universe that, they're not religious, they're not baptized, they don't believe in a God or anything like that, but they do believe in a higher power. And that's how I tell everybody to think of it when you first get sober, is think of it as a higher power, because nobody has the right to tell you what religion you have to be, who you have to worship, none of that stuff. And in order to be living a sober life doesn't mean you have to be a religious person. In no way. And that's what a lot of people pause at. They're like, nope, I'm not doing that. Absolutely not. And that's where a lot of people tuck tail and go the other way. But once you learn the program and you start working your program on a daily basis, it gets easier. It gets so much easier. I walk through stores, I go down the liquor aisle, and it doesn't bother me anymore. I listen to music with whatever drink name in it, and it doesn't bother me anymore. I can see people drinking it, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when they get stupid drunk, and then, it's me trying to be like, you're not fooling me, I already know you're drunk, I know you're blitz, and, you're not fooling this one. I've been there. I've done it, Don't worry, it's not just regular people. It's relatives, But I try to not judge them for it. But it's hard when you're seeing somebody that you care about go down that road and there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. And it took my sponsor, I don't know how many times, to tell me to read a certain part in the book. And I finally read it and I was like, oh, I need to stop harassing my twin to quit drinking. And so I had already told her that I was sober and I was going through AA and she should come. So she knew. And finally she came. And that made my day so much brighter when she showed up. And she stayed. She went home and she stopped drinking. And I was so happy, and I'm still happy because she's trailing right behind me. She's 8 months younger than me in sobriety, and like I said, some of us get it and some of us don't. And I feel bad for the ones that don't. And they don't get it before it's too late. And sometimes that's just what they choose. But they don't always find the things that will help them to be sober and live a better life in sobriety and get your life back on a better stance. I mean, I'm doing a lot better than I was when I was still drinking. I have my crappy ass days. I have my good days, and I cry on days, and I still have natural feelings, and it's not masked by alcohol. It's not covered by the alcohol. I'm not going through it like speed game, No, I'm feeling the true emotions that I'm supposed to be feeling when I'm feeling it. And I'm just glad that I've had the luck and the great groups that I have been able to go and meet for being sober that have taught me that I can do this and I can work the program and share the program and do my meetings and reach people that need it. And because I know not everybody can make it to a meeting, and it's one of the best things I found. Really, it is. It's the best thing I found. And I have a higher power. Use all of my ways of diverting an issue. Like if I'm gonna get into an argument with somebody, I exit. I'm gone. Nope. Unless of course it's between me and my husband and we're just bickering. But then we laugh it off and so whatever. We get over it. And I can vouch that when you're drinking, you're the one that's leaving your family behind and you're making yourself believe that they pushed you away, and that's not how it was. And that is the truth. And your friends, and just walk away from it all, thinking that they're the ones shoving you out, and that's not what's happening. And I learned that going through the program. And I've had to continually make amends to my parents because of things growing up that I remember doing that I think, okay, maybe they won't be so pissed off at me for it, And like I've admitted drinking dad's liquor. I'm like, yep, I sure did. And now I'm like, yeah, I drank that and I shouldn't have. I should have never, I used to go catfishing, and my dad and I always had the same drink that we liked. Jack Daniels, straight up. No chaser, no nothing, just straight Jack Daniels. And every now and then I'd ask him for a shot because I ran out. And I went there, I think the last time I went with my family, I had bought, I think I got 3 or 4 fifths, and I drank them all. I drank them all. Just me. and it was hot. So, and I wasn't drinking water, so I was dehydrated, breaking out in hives, and because there was something I was allergic to over there, and it was just, I don't miss it. I miss going and catching the fish, but I don't miss the alcohol at all. If I could do it all over again, it would be minus that. And that's through everything. It would be minus that. But, once you learn to work your program, use the books, go to meetings, and share what you learn, it does help you to stay sober, and every day's worth it. Not always tell people that it is worth every mile, every tear that you have to go through to get there. It's very much worth it. So, but anyways, I'm going to go ahead and read the daily reflection and then get on with the day or the night, because I got things to do, like eat something, because I haven't eaten today. No, I don't want to read the book. I'm already reading the book. The acid test. As we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living to practical use day by day, in fair weather or foul. Then comes the acid test. Can we stay sober, keep in emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 88. I know the promises are being fulfilled in my life, but I want to maintain and develop them by the daily application of step 10. I have learned through this step that if I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. The other person may be wrong too, but I can only deal with my feelings. When I am hurt or upset, I have to continually look for the cause in me, and then I have to admit and correct my mistake. It isn't easy, but as long as I know I am progressing spiritually, I know that I can mark my effort up as a job well done. I have found that pain is a friend. It lets me know there is something wrong with my emotions, just as a physical pain lets me know there is something wrong with my body. When I take the appropriate action through the 12 steps, the pain gradually goes away. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys. Be safe out there and stay sober. And if you need help, always remember you're not alone, and there are people you can call for help. Call Alcoholics Anonymous. Or if you're in emergency, call your emergency and have them come and help you. But you're worth it. Everybody's worth sobriety. So I love you guys.